Hello everyone, welcome to the stream. Today we're gonna watch an extremely interesting game, and I don't know how about you, but I'm very excited. So the game today is between arguably or not two best players of Europe, and of course two best players of Belarus, Tanyan Vincent and Korchitsky Sergey. They played a lot of games against each other, more than 40 from what I remember, and almost at every single tournament where they play together, they compete against each other for the cups. Today, actually, the situation is absolutely the same. They made it through the playoffs. Vincent in the previous round beat Denis Titov, if I remember it right, and Sergey beat me. So now they're playing the finals, and the winner of this match is going to compete for the Masters title. If I remember it right, in the next week. Players are still preparing, as you can see, but the match is gonna start soon, and I'm going to comment it for you today. Usually they play range and rooks against each other, so it's gonna be difficult for me to give you any insights regarding what they're gonna do, but nevertheless it's gonna be interesting to watch, and maybe we'll learn something from these extremely strong players. While the players are still preparing, let me quickly show you the brackets, just to illustrate what I was talking about. Actually, we can see that Vincent is already at the board. Sergey is still away. So let me just quickly show it to you. Some reason it doesn't work. Weird. Yeah, unfortunately I can't show it for some reason. But it's not much to say anyway. All we need to know is that today is a big match, and the winner will play against Anton Starykevich. It's gonna be a best of two match, and we'll watch it together hopefully as well. Let me switch back to the live stream from Ginkamuri Club in Minsk. Vincent is preparing for a tough fight, concentrating, focusing, preparing his pieces for the fight, and waiting for his rival. Yeah, welcome everyone to the stream. Happy to see you here. The game is gonna start soon. Yeah, I had a lot of time, like a big break after the previous stream streak. So hopefully have enough energy today to give you some quality commentary. If you are sick and tired of my face, you can also watch the stream without me. And there is also one more stream hosted by Anton Starykevich, who does the commentary in Russian language. So we provide a lot of choices for you, a lot of options. So you can enjoy shogi from Minsk Shogi Club in the way you like it. Yeah, it was always a problem that we used to talk about the players, about the background, about what's going on in the tournament before the game was starting, and we were always late for the first 10 moves, and I was complaining about that to our director, and now he gives us way too much time. So we're still learning, still adjusting, and hopefully from one stream to another we will only improve in the quality of what we do. Both players are of equal power, same ranks. They are both capable of beating each other. And I would say this match is like a classic rivalry in Minsk Shogi. In the previous stream, when I was playing against Sergey, Vincent was streaming our game, and he said that he knows what to play against Sergey, so probably we're gonna see some kind of homework made by Vincent and maybe some prepared openings. It's usually pretty difficult to surprise Sergey, but who knows? Maybe we'll see some tricky tactics and strategies from Vincent. Or other way around. Both players are at the board, so it means that the match is gonna start very soon. I think we're all ready. This tournament has an unusual format. The main time players have for the game is extended. If you compare it to the usual European tournaments where you have 30 minutes per game, here we have 1 hour, which allows for players to save more time till the end game, and of course improves the quality of the game we see. And also we have 1 minute of additional time. Both players do their moves quickly. We see an interesting move by Sergey. He pushes his edge pawn twice. It seems like he has quite a specific plan for his game, but it doesn't really surprise Vincent. He just goes with his usual game plan, probably preparing the battlefield for his rook to be moved to the other flank. Already an interesting battle. It's not often you can see the edge pawn being pushed that far that early on during the game. Sergey takes this pose first. I guess he achieved what he wanted, and now he just makes sure that everything goes according to his plan. Usually, a classic game from both of these players would be I for bishop, so double swinging rook. But this time it looks more like Sergey is aiming for static rook against Vincent's ranged rook. Interesting. This is the type of game I like to see because this is what I usually play. So hopefully I manage to give some insights about what's going on here. but both players still have some room for improvisation, for improvising. So everything can happen. I'm intentionally not showing the board yet because it's early. It's an early game and moves are made quickly, and just don't want to switch between the screens too often. Sergey pushes his middle pawn. White a natural move, doesn't reveal exactly what his game plan is. So he still can go for some kind of a ranging rook strategy like Takada if Vincent swings his rook. But it's also a good move for static rook, which will allow his right flank silver to develop at some point, or maybe to reinforce his castle. Okay, let me check if everything is okay, if sound is working. Yeah, everything looks good. Nobody's texting me regarding any problems. This is what I like to see, even though it's a bit suspicious. Yeah, Vincent takes some time to figure out how to trick Sergey, how not to reveal his game plan. And meanwhile, I will try to set the board for us so we can do some analysis. Let me find the key for this game real quick. Alright. So Vincent is still thinking, and that means straight to the analysis board. Oops. Straight to the analysis board. Okay, here we go. Yeah, so one thing I noticed is that Vincent pushed his silver early on from the 4-2 square to 4-3. It's not a very common move nowadays. It's more common to keep his silver on 3-2 if you go for Furibicha. So it's very likely that his idea is... So usually I expect to see some kind of formation like this. But by the sequence he chose, I can say that it's very likely that he's going to go with his rook to 3-2, and it's very likely we're going to see sunken bishop from Vincent. Seems like that Vincent is not sure whether he should go for the standard plan, because in this case Sergey would probably go for some kind of a Takada system by moving his silver generals up and spinning the rook on the left flank. And Vincent likes to play it himself, but playing against that seems uncomfortable for him. And all of a sudden we see a very irregular situation. Vincent goes for a static rook. So this is what I was talking about. Both players try to surprise each other. And this might work in both ways. So of course Sergey is going to be surprised, but at the same time this is not an opening where Vincent feels comfortable. If the question is how much time he spent on preparing this opening. If he didn't spend enough time, this might actually be pretty tough for him to play it, since Sergey has more experience here. But of course we shouldn't underestimate Vincent, because after all he is a multiple... he won the European Championship a couple of times. If I remember it right, he's the current champion of Belarus, and of course he can play on high level all the openings. But this move is a bit concerning to me. I just really hope that Vincent is not sacrificing his well-prepared openings for the surprise factor. Let me see what happened to the quality of the... it seems fine. Everything seems fine. You can see people voting for a good game. Of course, we want to see a good game, and today's game has really high chances to show that. So all of a sudden it's becoming a good tradition of Ginkamori Shogi Club to see a lot of static rook games. So the previous stream was my game against Sergey, it was double static rook, and here all of a sudden in the game where we were expecting a double ranging rook, we see the double static rook again. So seems like we're getting closer to the professional level, am I right? Yeah, seems like Vincent after all surprised Sergey a little bit. Sergey takes his time, makes sure that he's not falling for any trap, even though it's no room for traps at this point. Very unlikely. The game is gonna get slower here, and it's very likely we're just gonna see both players casting their kings in some kind of Yagura or Ganki castles. Back to the board. So the engine suggests to Sergey to move his silver. Because this is pretty much the standard thing you do when you play double static rook. And when it's not some kind of sharp opening like Kakugavari, the bishop exchange, Ryoko Fudori, the pawn picker in English. So most likely we're gonna see some slow development with Vincent going for this Ganki castle and Sergey going for this Yagura castle. Of course, there are different interesting strategies now. For example, with this kind of formation, I see more and more often right king, so we might see something like that. Actually, this kind of opening I would like to see. This is what I like to play myself. Yeah, but of course the other moves is important. It's always possible to open up the game earlier. That's why both players take their time. Sergey advanced his silver to 6-7 square. bit unusual for me. But this is exactly what I'm talking about. Probably he wants to go for some kind of a quick attack by advancing his silver to 4-6 maybe, and going for some kind of rapidly advancing silver strategy. Vincent simply advances his attack in silver. So all the basic moves. Surprisingly, none of the players went up with their golden generals to defend the bishop's head. And this actually concerns me because seems like both of them are not really looking for slow games. And they will probably go for a double attack on each other, a rapid one. So Sergey plays the static rook much more often. I would say it's his primary opening, even though he's good in pretty much everything, since he follows the professional games a lot and he knows all the new things in shogi. And it's expected that he knows better these kind of positions, but surprisingly takes more time. And we can already see that he's a little bit behind, with Vincent having 54 minutes and Sergey having 51. Yeah, this is what I was talking about. Sergey pushed his rook pawn to 2-6. And this is actually a sign, it's like greening, that he will most likely go for... Seems like I missed something. Sorry, the order is wrong, but I don't think it's gonna be a problem. Yeah, so let's say Vincent defends here. So I think Sergey will go for these pushes here and will probably try to attack with his silver. And I guess his game plan is that he wants to test Vincent here, since Vincent doesn't play these openings too often. He might not know how to defend against these rapid attacks properly, and maybe Sergey will gain some small advantages here. The basic ideas when you play against rapidly advancing silver is something like, let me show you. So this is an important key point. This is where Gotha might go for a counter-attack by pushing this pawn. Ignoring it is pretty difficult because this silver is not that quick. At least it's not as quick as Santa would like it to be. Of course, they might try to push here, but after that, taking here is mandatory. And here is this interesting pawn drop. So if it's ignored, this is a big threat and it has to be defended. And if not, here is this rook fork. Of course, maybe it should be implemented a little bit different, but this is kind of an idea which you should keep in mind all the time. Back to King Kamuri. Yeah, as we were expecting, Sergey went further with his rook pawn by advancing it to 2-5. Vincent defends with the bishop, And probably Sergey will push his 3-7 pawn at this point to prepare his rapid silver attack. Of course, it's a bit tricky because his king is not castled properly yet, but pretty much the same we can say about the Vincent's king. Arguably, it's even in a worse position because it's blocked by this wall of two generals at 6-1 and 6-2. Okay, let me read some comments. Ivan is giving some feedback about the game, always interesting to watch and read. It's actually predictable. Yeah, so Ivan actually says that in the previous game, Vincent played static rook as well, so this kind of expected outcome. Seems like I missed it, so sorry about that. But I still wouldn't say that it's kind of a regular thing to watch. One time doesn't mean anything, but now we see that it's a trend, so maybe we'll see more games like that, which really excites me. Of course, still in equal position, and it's gonna be equal for a long time, I believe. It's not very much both players can do about that. This is quite a safe opening without any traps, mostly. So Sergey decided not to escalate the position, and I like what he does. He goes for left Mina castle, very popular among the professionals now, and he'll probably make a couple of moves with his king. It's pretty easy and quick to build. It's a really good option. So basically, it's very likely that he'll finish casting in 1 or 2 moves just by. Sometimes I see people just keeping their king at 6-8. Sometimes it's even safer than keeping it on 7-9. So just enough 2 moves to get a relatively solid castle for Sergey. Probably the quickest option he has now. And this is another sign of him preparing the quick attack. Sorry, this pawn is not pushed yet. And sorry, actually the position is very different now. Let me see how it looks like. Just like this. And Vincent pushes the pawn to 7-4. I think it has 2 ideas in mind. So actually it's a good move in general because it opens a lot of possibilities. It doesn't really reveal to Sergey what exactly Vincent is cooking. So first of all, it can be used for this silver to advance. So this kind of preparation for the attack. Not only that, also if nothing will happen by the end game, it can be pushed to apply some pressure, to put some pressure on this bishop's head. And finally, Vincent chooses a more passive game style in a good way. It can be used for this knight's advancement, and maybe he'll go for this kind of gangi castle with the right king. And of course, another idea is just to advance the knight and to threaten this nasty rook fork here. Yeah, the director says in the chat that the score between Vincent and Sergey is 27-15, with Sergey leading by 12 games. But I think that a lot of losses by Vincent were made when he was not as strong as he is now, and having 15 wins against such a strong opponent shows the high level of skill Vincent has. Sergey finishes castling, so he brings his gold closer to the king, and even the engine suggests to move his king to 6-8 square, just as we discussed a bit earlier. And we can already see the difference in castles. Sergey's king is gonna be pretty safe, right, in just in one turn. And Vincent's king is still sitting in his initial position, and might be alright some cases, but in general I would consider moving it closer to the 2-2 square. However, Vincent decides that he's doing alright in terms of defense and advances his silver to 7-3. Of course, he still has options to continue castling, but this turn, this move shows his intentions very clearly. He doesn't want to give initiative to Sergey, and he will probably try to, after all, put some early pressure on the bishop's head, the weakest place of the left hand mini castle. Yeah, what I'm trying to say about the score 27-15, of course it might show that Sergey might be a bit stronger statistically, but it's not like a big difference in my opinion when you lost 15 times to someone. Seems like Sergey is uncomfortable with that Vincent's attack preparation, and surprisingly he goes for quite unusual square for the attack in silver and moves his silver to 6-6, defending the bishop's head. Interesting idea, and I guess let me show you the board. Sorry. This is the position we have right now. I think he might be doing this zigzagging with his pieces in order to trade his bishop and maybe to reinforce his castle with this silver. Interesting idea. So actually it shows good understanding of the position by Sergey. You can see all the pieces can move freely around and very flexible. Yeah, Vincent goes for it. advances his silver, and probably preparing this attack on the 7th file. But I think shouldn't be a problem for Sergey, especially if he moves the bishop away from the attack, so this will only allow him to trade this attacking silver actually, because you can remember it went here from 3-9, so actually trading it is not a bad thing for Sergey at all. Also, he'll manage to trade the bishop within a few moves on the 2-4 square. Trade the pawns as well, and actually it might be actually a good thing that Sergey didn't move his king too early, and it's now much safer since the main attacking point is now 7-5. So if the king was here, I think it would have been worse for Sergey. So I guess in the next few turns, Sergey is gonna get 2 pieces in hand, bishop, a silver, maybe even a pawn. Which will create a good opportunity for him to make some attacks. Also an interesting thing, if Sergey manages to trade his bishops and Vincent will move his rook here, there is this very dangerous square with some possible forks. Seems like we guessed Sergey's intentions. So after all, he rotated his bishop to 6-8 square, preparing the trade on 2-4. And Vincent saw that, well, and seems like Vincent saw that bishop fork on 8-4, which we noticed, and he decided to move his king a bit away from that dangerous spot to 4-1. Sergey reinforces, just creates, brings some more defenders to the 7-7 square, and specifically the silver. So let me reiterate it one more time. This is what could happen. And pushing this pawn would be a mistake by Vincent because of this fork. So that's why Vincent chose to move his king away to prevent this fork here. And Sergey decides not to escalate it here. Maybe he'll go for it anyway, but he chose to bring this silver up, and I guess probably the main idea why he does it is because of this diagonal, which might be used by Vincent at some point, because the silver is gonna be traded soon, and Sergey just wants to make sure that this bishop does not invade into his camp. Oh my god, I wasn't showing the board. That's sad. Alright, at least you were enjoying the game. And I think I'm not showing it after all because the position has changed a lot. Okay, while I was analyzing that position, something has changed. Let me quickly see what happened. So Vincent castled his king, and Sergey castled as well. He actually made this Yagro-like structure. Very interesting development, not exactly what I was expecting. So, which makes it more interesting to watch for us. Okay, just give me a second. So at this point, Sergey's king is more vulnerable. It might make sense moving it to 6-9 to a safer spot. But at the same time, I think he doesn't feel comfortable about it since Vincent is almost ready for creating some attacks on the left flank. And maybe that's the reason the engine suggests to Sergey just to advance his knight to 3-7 and to wait and to see what Vincent's intentions are. Both players are pretty close in terms of time. They still have a loss. They only use 20, even a bit less than 20 minutes for the opening. We are getting closer to the mid game and expecting to see some Sabaki pretty soon. So quite a good time management. Only the third of time is used for the opening and the basic preparations for the mid game. Just trying to understand why the engine suggests to Gotha to advance their knight to 6-5 square. Kind of seems like too early, but of course it will create some problems to Santa and will force them to make their castle a bit weaker. But at the same time, it creates some opportunities for Santa, because Santa will be able to trade their 6-6 silver for the 6-5 knight. Maybe create some attacks, like by pushing it on 1-5. Actually an interesting idea, let me show it on the board. So the engine suggests to Gotha to move their king first away, well, not away, but in the castle, somewhat the castle. And only after that to start attacking with this knight. And I think the idea is that if this knight will jump too early, there is this idea here, which is not very comfortable to defend against. So if it just ignored by... Actually, what about this one? Oh, this pawn is not defended, okay. Yeah, so first of all, I think it's quite an awkward spot for this silver. It can be captured at some point easily. But let's think about this idea. So if ignored, let's say, this bishop move here. and this attack is too powerful. It's supported by 2 major pieces, and this flank is gonna be pushed really hard. So it cannot be ignored, and I think this forces either this move, and I guess Santa should be quite happy about this outcome, and maybe we'll try to go for this silver by some moves like this one. Probably not the best idea, but something like that. Or this drop, and I guess it's fine as well, because going for this knight will take some time, and Santa should be okay with that as well. Maybe just changing the pieces here. Yeah, I think Goto don't have time, so am I? Yeah, I'm showing the board. That's good. Yeah, and Goto's rook is very, very vulnerable, and I guess the only defense would be this one. But Santa should be okay, just with some drops like that. And in general, I think its initiative is for Santa in this position. But let's see what's actually going on in the game. Yeah, and that's why Goto should probably just move their king to the castle. And this is what the engine suggests. Yeah, so I see the comment about the knight attack, and I don't know. It seems if you do it too early, this can lead to this move sequence I've just showed, and I would feel very uncomfortable to play this position, so I wouldn't hurry up with the knight attack. Yeah, and Vincent goes according to the engine inside his castle. Oops, sorry. Should close this tab. It's actually very interesting that we saw a lot of opportunities to Sergey start those early attacks, some rapid attacks, but what we see now is that his position is much more passive, so Vincent's attack information is already prepared, all unloaded. The a2 rook, the 7-3 knight, the silver, ready to attack at any time, and at the same time, by moving silver from 5-7 to 6-6, Sergey chose to play around the counterattacks. So he just kind of telling to Vincent, okay, you attack first, and we'll see what I do after that. And he has good thickness, he has like 4 generals around his king. And as soon as any trade happens, he's also ready to launch those counterattacks by pushing the 2-4 pawn and trading there his bishop. I think he should also advance his knight to 3-7 and pawn to 4-6 maybe to have more attacking ideas. But even now, I think he's alright. So what I'm trying to say is that all of a sudden now Vincent is the one who decides when to attack, not Sergey. So Sergey is playing defensively, and it's just up to Vincent when the fight is gonna start. But if Vincent chooses just to keep castling, as I said like a minute ago, advancing Sergey's knight might start some attacks as well, but it would take at least a couple of more turns to Sergey to develop those attacking ideas. So the tempo of this game has changed. all of the sudden. Yeah, I see Ivan contradicts my ideas with the knight on 1-5, and probably it's doesn't really matter anymore because the king is on 3-1 square, ready to defend at any time the 2-3 square by advancing to 2-4, to 2-2, I mean. But if Vincent didn't do that, I still think that dropping the knight would be an interesting idea to play around. Having an extra general in Gota's camp doesn't really mean big advantage for them because it just creates a wall. So I don't think it would benefit Gota in any way. But you might be right. I'm not sure whether it's very good. While we are waiting for the next turn, I'll try to analyze that with the engine, and maybe if there are some interesting lines there, we'll watch it together. Um, oh, wow! So actually, Vincent advanced his knight. So yeah, we can definitely watch it now. Let me show you. Not gonna work. Okay, for some reason it's not working. So let me try it. I really want to show you my browser. Just give me a second, please. Okay. Okay, it must be working now. Let me import the key for the... Right, so we were discussing this position, and what if Vincent would push his knight at this point, and let's switch on the engine analysis. Right, so and also There's no pharaoh. Yeah, so even though the best move is probably not taking the knight, but it seems like this idea is also not that bad. The engine suggests actually dropping the knight here to trap the silver. But if we go here, surprisingly, dropping the silver on 2-2 will just equalize the position. Even though it's just a tiny bit better for Gotha. The question is that since the king is here on 3-1, sorry, I think this idea doesn't work anymore, because the king is ready to go. Actually, surprisingly, it said that it's even better now. Okay, I don't know, Shogi, sorry. Okay, let me quickly check. What Sergey is up to. I'm checking the comments now. Yeah, thanks for good luck. Thanks a lot, and thank you for watching. I can actually see that more people have joined. So welcome everyone to the stream, and for those who doesn't know, today we're watching the final of the playoffs for the Masters title, and the game is between Sergey and Vincent. Both are the top players, not only in Belarus but also in Europe, of the 5th Dan rank. And it's a very exciting game to watch. So now we're trying to figure out what's the best move for Sergey in this position, and there are different options, so the engine even suggests in some lines to simply ignore it. But it seems like the best move according to the engine is just to retreat with the 7-7 silver. Yes, surprisingly, the engine really likes actually, let me show you browser real quick again. So the main two ideas would be, so the best one is just retreating with the silver, and the one which would make Sergey's position a bit worse, but still it's gonna be balanced. It's gonna be a very balanced position if he simply takes the knight. So the engine says that it's almost an equal position. The difference in 1 point is almost nothing. Minus 1.4 is probably not really what I'd like to see here, but pretty playable anyway. Sorry. How many moves have been made, I wonder? So it's already almost 40 moves, and we can see that the position is absolutely equal. In the previous games, this absolutely was not the case, and it only proves that we see the game between two very strong players. So if Sergey just retreats here, seems like the engine likes his position more, just a tiny more. And yeah, seems like it's not many ideas for Vincent here, so let's say just reinforce the castle like that. And here the initiative is from the Sergey side. Yeah, so here his main ideas would be just to advance the attacking pieces. I really don't like the fact that now it's up to Sergey when to trade these knights, so at any time he can capture it and get an extra piece for his attacks. So that's why I'm not sure. From the player's perspective, I'd say not a big fan of the move, but according to the engine, it's pretty valid and seems like people in the chat also find this move quite logical. This is probably the first stab made in this game. So finally, we see that somebody decided to make an attacking move, and this is exactly what we discussed. That Vincent was the first one to do that, so initiative was from his side. And it seems that from now on, it's not easy for Sergey it won't be easy for him to develop his castle. So it's very likely that he'll choose to retreat his silver to 8-8, creating the wall for his king. And after that, the best he can do is probably just moving his king to 7-9. But I don't think he would achieve much with that, since the attack will be likely be there. That's why I don't think that any casting moves would make sense for him, and from now on he'll start working more on the attack by advancing the knight, as the engine suggests now. And that's it, I guess. And maybe just pushing the fourth file pawn to start the trades and transitioning into the mid game. Yeah, so the engine actually does suggest moving the king here, and this is the only, seems like the only possible casting move, and after that only attacking options are available. And here actually, okay, I can see now how this oh, okay, sorry, I think I made an extra move. Right, interesting. Sorry, just give me a second. I'm trying to figure out whether I missed something or not. Yeah, so I actually accidentally made a move for Vincent, and now I see why it's important. So pushing this edge pawn is actually seems like a good option for Vincent. It eliminates these attacking ideas after the trade of the silver for the knight. So this knight drop wouldn't be possible anymore from 1-5. And after that, if Sergey chooses to castle more, there is this interesting idea for, sorry for the noises, it's very hot here, so I have to keep my window open. Yeah, and after that there is this interesting idea to retreat with the silver, and taking this knight is possible, but this drop is not available anymore, and this silver is gonna be simply trapped, since both of these pawns are defended by the silver generals. Yeah, so a very interesting move, which has this very unpredictable idea of retreating with this general. And if Sergey doesn't take the knight, Vincent can just reinforce it by pushing this pawn. And maybe just slowly bringing the general back to the castle. Something like that. Or actually just creating more thickness on this flank like this. Vincent chooses a very different approach to attacking Sergey's castle. Second. So yeah, Sergey retreats his silver. The best move by the engine. And Vincent advances his pawn to 5-5. I think nothing prevents Santa from taking it right now, but I guess Goto will be able to activate their bishop here, create a double attack on this pawn. Yeah, I don't think this is the best continuation, because Goto don't achieve much with that, but they will manage to trade some pieces. Not sure. Should let me see it with the engine to be better. Yeah, and actually you can see, according to the engine, Sergey keeps growing his advantage. And there are two options here. The best one is of course taken. Yes, we've just seen nothing really prevents Santa from doing that. Yeah, so this pawn push to attack the pawn. And surprisingly, Santa have a really interesting move here. Knight to 3-7. This is something I didn't see. I thought that simply trading here would be okay. Oh, okay, so the idea is to move the bishop on 7 square to start defending the pawn with these two pieces. And I just wonder why just moving it back doesn't work. Oh, because the silver can take. Right, and there is this drop here. Wow. Yeah, so I think getting this extra piece here is a good idea, so Sergey keeps getting more pieces in his hand, and this would create a lot of difficulties to Vincent if this would occur. Let me check the comments real quick. Bishop 4-6 opportunities. Trading bishops for cent. Yeah, trading bishops for cent is always possible. I guess Sergey just can do it at any time, and he doesn't want to give that bishop in hand to Gotha too early. He's just waiting for a good moment. And the engine of the stream is actually also, as Ivan says, screaming about the knight to 7-7 advancement. Yeah, I don't know. It's actually very interesting because it seems dangerous to move your knight to your castle knight to 7-7, and seems like just giving away some tempo for the opponent. But surprisingly, it's absolutely okay, and it only allows to send it to gain some material in their hand. And this is the answer to what was asked in the chat. The bishop trade is gonna occur now, and it would obviously tactical potential. Yeah, I agree with Ivan and his comment in the chat that you only trade the bishops when you're sure that it will benefit you. And actually, even now, Sergey doesn't have to trade, so he just prepared this ground for the trade, so he can trade it now anyway for sure with tempo, but he doesn't have to do that. Yeah, the engine agrees that trading bishops is not mandatory, still not mandatory, and it still wants to trade the knights on the left flank. But Sergey goes for the trade. I guess he has in mind some drops like to 7-1. Yeah, the bishops works really well in defense, that's true. Let me quickly switch here. Something I wanted to show. Yeah, so I guess Sergey is aiming for some drops to 7-7, 7-1, or maybe, sorry, just an example move. Let's say skip. And also there is always things like this one, which might be very dangerous if at some point Gotha decides to take the pawn in the middle. I don't know, let me... Yeah, so this thing might occur at any point. Just an imaginary situation, but these are just some ideas for future attacks. But now it's even easier because this drop. Yeah, so this is the move actually Vincent does. So he defends this silver. Sorry. Yeah, so he defends the silver on 4-4. So now simply dropping bishop here is kind of pointless. But even after that, the position is equal according to the engine. But of course, it's much better to have some advantages. So I think that the engine is gonna just insist on trading the knights at every single turn, but another option here is simply retreat with the rook, and if got it don't defend, of course, dropping a pawn. So something like that at any time. And I guess I saw somewhere here in different lines that exactly what I was talking about before. It's almost at any time possible to simply take this knight and drop the bishop. Is possible to create some pressure on the left side of this king. We can already see that Sergey is becoming a favorite in this game. It's 57% against 43. And I don't know. I personally blame this early knight advancement by Vincent before actually figuring out where to how to defend his king properly. Just created a lot of weaknesses in his position, in my opinion. Yeah, and also advancing the silver to 4-4 is questionable as well. Yeah, I agree with that. But in general, it's not a game over, of course. The difference is not that big, and almost every single trade might change the outcome of this game. Both players have spent more than half of their time. We're getting closer to the end game, and the less time they're gonna have, the sharper it's gonna be. Even though I know a lot of people don't like additional time in shogi and players having only 1 minute per turn, I find it kind of exciting because when players have this time pressure, sometimes they find really unexpected moves, and even though they might be not the best one, they create really interesting positions on the board, and this is something I like to watch. So Sergey has some options now. I wonder whether he's going to find the knight trade, since it looks very unnatural and he hasn't done it before. He didn't do it before, so I don't think he'll go for it, and maybe he's just considering whether he should drop a pawn right now or to retreat the rook first, make sure it's in a safer position. An interesting pawn drop option on 2-2. It will require the golden general to take it. And this will make Goddess position weaker. Let me show you it on the board. Yeah, so there is this pawn drop, which forces Gota to take, and you can see that Gota's position is getting really weak here, and there is a continuation attack. And maybe only after that to fall back the rook. Oh, according to the engine, it's actually bad. Okay, and what's the best continue? Of course, straight into the knights, which we ignore for now. And yeah, and maybe at this point, yeah, so the ideas I've been discussing. So this trade here and promoting the bishop. Of course, this prevents promotion, but in this case we can gain material. For me, it looks really good for Santa, but according to the engine, it's an equal position. Yeah, so you can see that even logical continuations might lead to an equal position, and we'll lose Sergey's advantages. So that means that the position is still pretty difficult, and both players have pretty much equal chances for the win here. What's going on with my board? Sorry. Yeah, sorry. I think I fixed it. Yeah, so let me show it once again. So this forces Gota to take. There is this continuation here, and at this point maybe bishop drop. The only move that defends it is moving the rook here and bishop promotion. Yeah, and it seems like this is an equal position, but I really like it for Santa. Has its own difficulties though, and just a little bit better for Gota. So maybe not a perfect continuation. Anyway, let's see what's going on in the real game. And in the real game, Sergey is still thinking on the next move. Okay. Then let's try to explore some better options for Santa, where they don't lose any advantages. Let me check my screen. It's full screen. Okay. But I actually know it. Yeah. Oops. Too much. It must be better now. Right, so this is one of the options. The best option according to the engine is swinging the rook back. Of course, gotta have to drop a pawn here. So dropping a pawn here is good, but even a better option according to the engine is dropping the pawn to 5-6. And this surprises me. Oh no, it's not good for Santa, sorry. So it's good, not good for God, it's good for Santa. And for Santa, the best option would be just dropping a pawn here. Right, and of course, engine keeps insisting on this trade with the knight. 7. And surprisingly, there is also this idea of pushing the pawn, and I wonder why. Oh, because of the bishop drop. Interesting, so it's a double attack. on both the knight and the pawn. So defending this pawn is very crucial, otherwise the general is gonna be dead. And the only way to defend it is probably moving the general. But in this case, Gotha are going to lose some material. And finally, Sergey finds the best engine move. So this only proves how strong he is. This is very exciting because it didn't seem like he was going for it. But after spending around 10 minutes on calculations, he figured out that he can do it and gain some advantages from that. Let's try to imagine what position is going to unfold after this incredible move. So the best option for Gotha is just to go for the straight, otherwise they're gonna lose material. Maybe even without promotion to make it with the check. Silver takes. So now Santa have an extra piece in their hand, which is a good thing. And it still didn't do much for defense here. The best move for Gotha is... Oh, and actually here Gotha should defend the second file. Let's see why. Yeah, seems like position is gonna be pretty much the same as it was before, but Santa just gained an extra piece in their hand. Position is still quite complicated, and Sergey has only 15 minutes left, which might cause some problems for him soon. Let me check the chat real quick. Okay, so... This is... so Winston makes a move which the engine was not proposing, so I assume it's not the best one. But seems like it creates some problems to Sergey, besides giving him some extra percentages. Alright, so let me see. Yeah, so I think that Sergey is forced to move his gold here, sure. And it seems like actually the only difference in this position is that Gotha dropped their only pawn here, and I guess that's the reason the engine doesn't like it that much, because it's very likely that this pawn is not gonna work out and it's just gonna be taken back by Cent at some point. So if, for example, Gotha choose, and it's likely that they're gonna choose to trade here. 5-6. Should they have an interesting idea of promoting this knight here? Yeah, I don't know about that. But if they choose, for example, dropping the knight here, it can be easily taken, and at some point Cent might consider just taking this pawn, or maybe even just ignoring. So it doesn't do much here, and at the same time Cent doesn't have any other pawns for any attacks in the future. This silver's position is not that good, so yeah, a lot of problems. And of course Sergey chooses to retreat with his gold. And Vincent goes for the trade here. So this is the position we've just seen, and here got to have a couple of options based on the knight drop in their hands. So surprisingly, this knight drop here is the best option got to have, but there is also this attack on the 5-5 pawn, which will gain an extra pawn in hand for Gotha. And this actually is something Vincent might be considering. With the only problem of the bishop drop, so yeah, doesn't look that good. So this is the best outcome for Gotha here in this position. And as you can see, there are some problems with that, so the promoted knight doesn't do much. This pawn cannot be taken, so these silvers are very passive. And now it's Santa's turn, so they can do different kind of things, but according to the engine, one of the best thing they can do is to attack the knight here. Quite a risky move, I would be concerned of these drops, but seems like it's only better for Santa because it forces Gotha to drop the bishop on this pretty useless square. Yeah, but surprisingly Vincent goes for the pawn take. And I wonder how he can prevent the bishop drop on 7-3. So it wasn't the worst move according to the engine, and I guess he has some counterplay here. Oh, of course, the bishop drop. But of course it's not a problem because Sergey captured Vincent's silver before, so it's just a trade. And Sergey is still 61% favorite here. So yeah, at this point, Vincent takes, take, bishop drop. So of course the silver is gonna be taken, and the rook has to escape. I guess Vincent is just gonna take it here. And there are different attacking ideas on the second file, which is not well defended by Gotha. Yeah, so seems what Vincent did here, he just gave more pieces to Sergey, and at the same time Vincent doesn't have any solid attacks yet. Besides maybe only like taking this silver, sacrificing his bishop, and maybe dropping the knight on 6-5. So Sergey is probably calculating what's he gonna do after retreating the rook, and we can see that he only has 10 minutes left now, and even though he has already a solid advantage in this position, this might make a big difference. No, silver 5-5 was not the best move according to the engine, at least for the engine I'm using. The best idea was dropping the knight to 5-6. Weird idea, but the best. This was the second best option, and as you can see, it has its own problems. Only 9 minutes left for Sergey, and it's getting very dangerous for him because the game is really far from being over. But I guess he's calculating like a couple of moves ahead. He wants to be sure that he knows how he continues his attack after the bishop captures the 5-5 silver. Let's try to explore some possible attacks. So the best one is knight 2-3. And of course taken with the golden general doesn't look that good. I think we all agree with that. So the rook will recapture and promote. Not good, and this allows Sergey to gain some material straight away. And maybe even more if Vincent doesn't react in time. And this will create a lot of pressure on the king from this side and will allow Vincent to start to Sergey to start the attacks from the left side to constrain this king as much as possible. So let's say this, maybe this. No, not good. Of course, also Vincent cannot attack straight ahead because of the rook promotion. So that's why the best moves are pawn drops here. To create some ideas of dropping a silver here at some point. Yeah, and now in real game we can see the position we've been exploring. And here Sergey has to decide with which piece to start the attack. And the engine of the stream agrees with the option we've just seen, the knight drop on 2-3. Yeah, so this is the position now, and the best move is the knight drop here. But there are other options as well, like knight to 2-4. It's not as good as that one, but if Vincent doesn't reply carefully, you can see that he might face some difficulties. Still 5 minutes left to Sergey. Some very important decisions he has to take, because if he starts his attack properly, he won't need that much time later to calculate his further moves. But the time difference is really big now. Sorry, just give me a second. Yeah, I think that knight drop is the quickest option here, and it's very likely that Sergey will notice that and go for it. Dropping other pieces doesn't look good enough. However, he can also consider dropping the silver to 2-3. We haven't seen this option yet. However, as you can see, it only balances out the position. Even though Santa managed to promote their rook here. For those who have just joined, just reminding you that this is the final game of the playoffs for the Masters title. The winner of this game is gonna be qualified for the Masters match. So he's gonna compete with Anton Starykevich for the Masters title in the game best of two. It's gonna happen next week, and it's very likely that I'm gonna stream all the matches, so either 2 or 3 matches. And just a spoiler that it's there is a chance we're gonna stream it together with Ivan if he'll have time for that. Sergey chooses very sudden moves, so seems like he didn't like he didn't like these ideas of the bishop attack here, and he decides just to play it safe and drops his silver here, which will force this bishop to leave this kind of a good position in the middle of the board. A very safe option, and since he's run out of time, maybe even a good decision. Vincent drops a pawn. He wants to create a silver fork on 3-9. So the position has equalized a little bit. So doesn't seem like taking this bishop gonna be any good for Santa. Losing a rook here is too dangerous. So that's why we're gonna probably see something like that. And at this point, actually, Sergey can still go for the knight attack on 2-3. Because with the check, he has tempo for that. Or he can simply try to retreat and just to give up on that general, get some material in the middle of the field. But here actually gotta have a tricky move. Of course it's a threat mate by promoting the pawn. Interesting, an equal position. Well, yeah, so Sergey took the pawn, Vincent created this silver fork, and Sergey decided to get a bishop and a silver his hand for his rook. Position is balanced, and initiative is Sergey's side. The best move now for Goto is probably gaining some material by sacrificing their silver, trading for the knight on 3-7 and dropping the rook to 3-9 with the fork to the king and the gold. So but here Sergey can choose either to start escaping with his king already, or taking this pawn, or just simply taking here. But you can see that it's already getting better for Goto in this position. Since Vincent has much more time than Sergey, so he calculates it carefully, and it's like he feels that he got his second chance at this game. He chooses just to take the silver, which is probably not the quickest option he has, and this gives some time for Sergey to create an attack on the goddess king, because even if God chooses to sacrifice their silver on 3-7 as it was before, now it's much more slower than it used to be. So the main move is that, which has two aims in mind. First of all, it cuts these squares from the king, and also defenses the knight now, so sacrificing the silver is not possible anymore. If only Gotha don't drop the rook here. Something like that. Sergey is already on his additional time, so he has only 1 minute per turn, and of course it's gonna be more difficult for him at this point to play. He has to fully focus on the game and to fully use his intuition. Another good bishop drop is on 7-3. It attacks the rook and at the same time threatens to promote the bishop on 6-4 with the check on the goddess king. The engine shows that the position is still better for center, but it's very difficult to find the best sequence now, and especially when you have only 1 minute per turn. Yeah, so Sergey finds the best continuation. He will force the rook to go away from his position. He'll manage to promote the bishop. Will create some space around the Santa's castle, and maybe will create some possibilities for the future escape route. So far you can see that Sergey has been leading in this game, and we'll see whether he'll manage to keep it like that in the end game. Vincent is not in a hurry. He's calculating the attacking ideas, which is very important now. Santa's king is very vulnerable. This pawn on 5-7 actually works really well, even though the ancient didn't like it like 20 moves ago. So now it's actually doing really well on that spot, and the rook drop pretty much in any of the squares, 3-9 or 2-9, is very uncomfortable for Sergey. I think soon Sergey will be considering just giving up his right flank, all the pieces there, and he will just try to escape with the king through the squares 7-9, 8-8 to 9-7. He has a lot of space there, and he'll probably do fine if he does that. Sergey to choose. Yeah, attacking for Sergey is not very easy here, since he doesn't have a rook. It's gonna be tricky. Vincent chooses the best defense possible here. He moves his rook to 4-2, and now promoting the bishop at 6-4 does not include checking the king. and Vincent will have an extra tempo now to attack the Santa's king. So, answering the question from the comments, yeah, seems like Engine still wants Sergey to chase the rook, but also this bishop might work in defense here really well as well. So it has two ideas in mind. Yeah, so seems like Santa is pretty safe here, and there are some attacking ideas with knight drops here. However, Sergey chose to play it safe and dropped pawn in defense. Yeah, and all of a sudden, yeah, something has changed in the engine evaluation. I thought he was doing worse. Yeah, and still like he's doing great. So the order of moves is different, but it's pretty much all revolves around the same ideas. Sergey's move, he has only 16 seconds. I think he has nothing better but to just promote the bishop with the attack on the rook, or just to take the pawn. Yeah, he chooses just a straightforward attack. This position is already pretty complicated because different engines evaluate it differently. Vincent finds this attack on the gold. The question is it quick enough? And doesn't seem like that. Yeah, seems like after Santa take the pawn, Gote just simply don't have enough material to continue the attack here. After the knight promotion on 4-8, Santa will just retreat with their king straight into the camp, and they have a lot of space there, and after that they will be able to start the attack on the Goddess King. Vincent makes very quick moves, so he's trying to play around Sergey's lack of time. So Sergey is forced to do the quick moves, and Vincent does it just so Sergey doesn't have enough time to calculate the defense properly. And this might be not working really well for Vincent here. So only two moves are possible for Vincent in this position. So the bad one, dropping a silver here. It doesn't achieve anything. And another one promoting the knight. This is a threat mate. But here Center have a lot of defensive options, and the best one here is so the best one is actually just going for the attack straight ahead, but it's no point to hurry. This rook is pinned anyway, and just falling back with this silver does the work. Vincent chose to drop the silver, and Sergey defended it with the gold. Yeah, so the idea here is this one. So Gotha will manage to capture the gold in general, but it's still not enough to checkmate the Santa's king and only give Santa even more pieces in hand. And in this case, as we talked about, this bishop works really well to create the escaping route for the king, in case Gotha decides to chase the king here. I wasn't showing it again. Yeah, so I was just showing this move sequence. So after Vincent sacrifices his silver here, knight promotion, and pawn drop. So if the gold is dropped here, this king has a really nice escaping route thanks to this promoted bishop here. Sergey is already 88% favorite, but he still doesn't have enough time to create a quick attack on Vincent. So there is still some room for mistakes, and he needs to consider each move very carefully. You can see how focused both players are. The match is very important. The winner is going to compete for the Masters title. The stakes are high, and of course the pressure is very high as well. It's not much Vincent can do in this position. He's out of pieces, and he simply captures some materials. So he captures the lands. And this is the point where Sergey can go for the attack after defending it for so many turns. Yeah, so the engine suggests dropping the silver to 5-1 square. I think dropping the knight to 5-4 is also a possible option. So the idea is just to capture the rook, and it's already 95% for Sergey. Vincent's attack got exhausted. Sergey chooses to start the attack from another side, just to get some extra generals in his hand. Yeah, makes sense. So seems like Sergey just doesn't want to give up on the 6-4 promoted bishop. Doesn't want to trade it because it works really well in defense by defending the 3-7 knight. I'm reminded that Sergey has only 1 minute per turn, so he doesn't have enough time to calculate all the lines. So he uses more of his intuition, and it's very well developed, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, but what I'm trying to say is that he might go for not the best moves, since he doesn't have enough time to evaluate it properly. But it's already much easier for him to play this position, because Vincent doesn't have any valid attack anymore. I think Vincent has realized that he did something very wrong before, and he's trying to look for some tricky moves now to get back to the game, and he uses his remaining 6 minutes to continue the fight. He simply drops the lance to 5-8, but I guess Sergey even has an option to ignore it by escaping his king to 7-9. Has plenty of time for that, but he can also try to move his golden general to 4-8, also an option. So both players do their moves really quickly, that's why not opening the analysis board. If I'm gonna use it, we might just miss some interesting moves. Yeah, so this is exactly what Sergey does. He just ignores the Vincent's attack. He's going to escape it with his king to 7-9, and he just puts even more pressure on Vincent's defense formation. Vincent promotes the lance, gets general in his hand, so Sergey has to be careful about that. But the attack on the Vincent's castle is just way too strong. So you can see now how the first moves Sergey made in this game was the edge pawn push from 9-7 to 9-5, and surprisingly, this works really well in his favor now and creates a lot of space for him for the escape route. So even now, if Vincent goes with his lance to 5-8, opening the rook's attack on the king can just escape to 8-8, and it has a lot of space for its further escaping. Now Sergey just thinking how to continue his attack, and he has plenty of options, and I'm pretty sure most of them gonna work. chooses to take the general. And now he'll probably have to take the rook while he still can. So basically he can just trade all the pieces and it's still gonna be Atsumi, I believe. So yeah, the engine just suggests taking both the 4-2 rook and the 4-3 gold. And after that going for the checkmate attack. Yeah, you can see it's already 100% for Sergey, so it's already a mate, like in 15 moves probably. Right, so I think even if Sergey takes 4 to gold now, it's still gonna be a checkmate after that. I think it suggests it's been a forced checkmate for some turns already. So the 3-7 knight creates a really good support for the attack and for the further drop, so the king cannot escape too far away. And I'm pretty sure it's not a threat mate for Sergey. I mean, Vincent cannot checkmate his king at this position. Uh, Vincent still has 5 minutes, surprisingly. And Sergey can actually use Vincent's time to calculate the checkmate. That's why Vincent tries to do the quick moves, so Sergey doesn't have enough time for calculations. All of a sudden, I've just seen my name in the ancient's evaluation. Uh, yeah, seems like it was not enough time for Sergey to calculate it right. Um, he changed his opinion in the last minute, and of course, it's very hard to see the exact sequence just in 1 minute. But I think pretty much whatever he does now is gonna lead to his win anyway. And actually you can see one of the checkmating sequences now being played by our director. Very interesting. So Sergey decides just to trade all his pieces, and yeah, seems like it's still a checkmate even after that, by dropping the knight on 5-5 square. So the sequence which was showed now by the director. Even though Sergey wasn't really sure which bishop to sacrifice, he sacrificed them both anyway, so it didn't really make any difference. So the only escape route for the king is to 3-2. The question is, does it really help to escape the checkmating sequence? And probably it's not. A very intense moment. I'll just try not to talk too much. Should turn on the sounds. And seems like Sergey has noticed that this is a checkmate, and he just makes sure he calculated it right. Yeah, and it's gonna be game over just in a couple of turns. Yeah, and Vincent gives up. So, yeah, very interesting game. It was very unexpected, at least for me, to see the double static rook, even though people say in the comments that this is what they play now against each other. Yeah, the game was equal for around 50 turns, but we can see that Sergey is more experienced in these positions, and it seemed like he was just feeling it better. Anyway, Sergey wins these playoffs, and he's going to compete for the Masters title in the finals. In the last year, if I remember it right, he didn't manage to win it, and Anton still holds the title, but this time Sergey has another chance to do that, and they're gonna do it in the best of 2 game, which we're gonna stream as well. So thanks for joining, thanks for watching, and see you next time.